can we have your videos on? I would like to see a few faces. If it had been offline, then you would have had a chance to meet each other, get to know each other, but that's not possible. If we get a chance, we will definitely do that. But before that, when we try to uh, get an understanding of what we are actually looking at, there are certain topics in conflict resolution which are very basic and at the same time very complex. Uh, when we hear the word conflict, for me, even the pronunciation of the word, when we say conflict, again, there's a break there or there's a stress in one part of the word. And so that itself brings a little harshness. So automatically we think of something negative. When we hear the word conflict, we think there's something negative only. Now, I'm sure all of you had a chance to look at those exercises that were just to give you an idea about how we look at conflict. It's not an examination or evaluation, but just for us to understand what is it that we understand by conflict. Now, in the first exercise that I had given you, I'm not going to ask you what you have done, but if you had seen what you have written, you would have realized that when there was a conflict which happened with you and you were looking at it, and again you looked at it a little later, you were thinking that you could have done it in a different way. But when it was a conflict with another person also, when we apply the same parameters, yes, we would think that we would look at it in a different way, but there is a sense of I in everything. I am hurt. I read something very beautiful which says, in a conversation with someone, if I say I'm hurt, that means the other person has hurt me or I'm feeling very troubled. But when I'm saying, I think this has caused some discomfort, can we discuss about this? Then it is not accusing. I will not have the time, but if you people have the time, just check something called the compass of shame and blame, especially with respect to restorative justice. There it says that the first instinct is to blame another person, or we are reacting because of shame. But ultimately, everything is about this I. I am hurt. I want this, my need, my expectation, my views, my values. So, what happens is in any interaction with another person, whether it is because of our goals or because of our expectations, or even because we voice something, we are telling them something. Say, I was saying I'm going to Delhi. I live in Chennai. If I was telling someone I'm going to Delhi, and this person says, I know about Delhi, Delhi is very warm. Did I really mean to get that answer? I was just conveying a message, I'm traveling. Or I could say I'm going to a conference or I've got a job, something related to that. But then the other person preempted me and said, I know about Delhi, Delhi is very warm at this time, which I may need or may not need. That information may not be necessary at all. So what happens is at the outset itself, I get put off. Then the second thing is what kind of relationship I'm having with this person. See, if you're walking down a road and you happen to dash against a person, you are in a hurry. Your phone drops. Your latest iPhone 17 maybe drops. You're so upset that something could happen to the phone. You bend down, pick up the phone, but you're in such a hurry, maybe for an interview, you just rush off. But if the phone had broken, what would you do? You would at least pause to give a slap to the other person. Why? Because again, my property or something that I treasure has been mishandled, let us say. So basically, when we talk about conflict, what do we understand? Do we understand it as just a difference? Do we understand it as, um, what shall I say? Uh, Why is this not sharing? One second.
It's visible to us, ma'am.
Uh, wait. I'll stop sharing and then start. Okay, I'll start again later. So, when we are looking at this, what do we understand by uh, conflict? Anyone, can you suggest?
Ma'am, any dispute or disagreement between two individuals?
Okay. Other than that, any dispute,
Sorry.
right? I was telling you certain things. Now, on that basis, can you say something else?
Two persons are disagree on one thing. They are not agreeing on the same thing at one point of time.
Yeah, that is again a disagreement. Then,
Ma'am, anything which we want to do something in a particular way and is not going in that way, so we might, there might occur a conflict or a dispute because we wanted something to be in a certain way.
yeah, I want it in a certain way. Need is also there. Other than that, basically, there are anxieties, there are defensiveness. Now, when I say anxiety, what do I mean? You just now said needs. See, to just give you an example, today we have a lot of custody cases, right? And one person who's living, say, in Singapore, a couple living in Singapore, and suddenly this one of the parties, say the mother brings a child to India, and the husband realizes that she's not going to come back. Now, what would he do? He would go to he would apply to the court there because they were ordinarily residing in Singapore, right? But then, because the child is not there, he would be asked to go back to India and find out. So he comes to India. What is his first response? I mean, the child was ordinarily residing in Singapore. Now, on some pretext, she brings a child here and she's not returning. So, what is his feeling at that point of time? One is frustration. Second is he feels cheated. He feels that he was not told the truth when she left. His concern is because in India, the process is long. He may not see the child for some time. And what will he try to prove at that point of time? He would try to prove that he was the best father in the world. He's a hands-on father. Same thing with the contract. What happens when there is a contract and some there is a deficiency in service? And some one of the parties, the person who says there's a deficiency, he files a suit for damages. Now, what would he be looking at? He feels that he's been deprived of what was legally due to him, right? There was a contract to supply, say, 10 engines for Toyota, and only 9 has been supplied. Or today we order on Amazon, there is a defective piece that is delivered. And so, what is the feeling then? The first thing is, oh my God, is this happening only to me? Or why is this happening to me? And the second is, how can this happen to me? So, unless we address these questions of self, these questions of, what shall I say, uh, of defensiveness, of their of their understanding of the situation, we will not be able to help them at all. So, the first thing that we have to understand is the context in which this has happened. It is not just as a mediator, we have to understand the context. The parties have to understand the context in which this has happened. Now, why am I saying parties have to understand? Because already a lot of communication has happened and they are not happy with whatever has been said. I think there is some problem with my sharing the screen. I don't know what's happening. Mm.
Ma'am, we can see actually this PPT you are sharing with us, you are
Yeah, but
presenting.
it's not coming as full screen. That's what I'm trying to do.
Yes, yes.
I don't know why it's not showing as full screen. Again and again.
Let
Okay.
me talk to the IT department, ma'am. Maybe they can help.
Uh, okay, we'll just go ahead. Okay, for the so what is said is that I'm sure you've all heard of Yuri Fisher and all that. Now, Fisher defines conflict as incompatibility of goals and values of people in a relationship. Now, when I say people in a relationship, what do we mean? When we say, I don't know whether you can read it. He says conflict is defined as incompatibility of goals and values between two or more parties in a relationship. So, unless there is a relationship, you're not going to go and fight with Trump today because you have no dealings with him. You may be upset by the way he is handling the whole thing, but you're not going to go and send a mail to him about his policy or anything. So, unless we have some kind of a contractual relationship or a personal relationship, and there is an incompatibility of goals and values, I want you to remember this. Goals and values and relationships are the most important in conflict management because each one of us in a conflict space is actually trying to prove that what we're saying is the right thing. And because of that, there is a tension. Now, what do I mean by tension? I get angry, I get upset. Uh, why is that? Because I am looking at the issue in a different way. See, in this custody petition, the mother may be thinking, my husband has harassed me so much. And in a country like this, he will be granted joint custody. So I don't want to be here where the child will suffer what his behavior. So I will go away. So her concern is the safety of the child. And she's come off. And what is the issue here? Issue here is the protection of the child and for her to be free of this man. But would she be putting that there outright? No. Now, what is the concern of the husband? Concern of the husband is more his image, his status. She just went on holiday, or she said she's going for a short visit and she's not come back. So it becomes a question of status. It becomes a question of his identity. It is a question of his respect. It is also a question of his self esteem. So this tension can be because they have not really addressed the issues between them. They have not gauged the relationship between them. So the next thing that we have to look at is what is the what is it they are looking at? They are looking at what shall I say? They are looking at a resolution, but they are looking at a resolution on their own terms, not what would satisfy both of them. So when they are looking at resolution on their terms, what happens? Each one is trying to blame the other person. They are not looking at it properly at all. Now, when we say this, the important thing is one of the psychologists, Albert Bandura, speaks a lot about identity and those issues, and he says, I will share this PowerPoint with you later so that you can go through it. He says that what he coins as a social learning theory. He says individual is a thinking person and can impose a direction on forces within and pressures from external environment. What does this mean? Every person thinks, whether they think right or not, they are thinking. And to a certain extent, they can impose their conditions on others. See, within the family, there was this prime property in Chennai on one of the main arterial roads, which had been purchased by the family in the 1950s or so. So it was not a valuable property at all at that time. So then in 2000, when the father died, the mother asked the daughters who were already married by then to release their any claim over any properties or anything in the family because they had a construction business. They had started off as masons, but they had a construction business. So she just gave 2 lakhs to each daughter, and each one of them executed a release deed. Now all things are fine. The brothers do everything for the daughters, for their children. Everything is done. Now suddenly the amendment comes saying women have equal share in family property. So what happens? One of the sons-in-law induces one of the sisters to file for partition. So it was actually referred during the second appeal stage in mediation. And what the elder, that time the father had died, so only the elder brother was there, the mother had also died. The sisters admitted that they had taken 2 lakhs when the mother asked them to release, but they said no, they have a right to property, so they are entitled to ask for a share. The only objection, and this was the only sister who had filed, the other sisters were just waiting. And he had been helping everyone with their children's education and all that. The only reply that he had was that women should not enter courts. Women should not enter the public places and make a claim. And now that she has done this, I will not give her anything. There were other properties, there were money also. He said he would like to do it. At one point, he said he would like to do it for her daughters. But he said, because she chose to go to court, I will not give it to her. Now, these are values. These are also external pressures and internal pressures. And all of them are thinking persons. Now, what? How can we say that what he is saying is wrong in this day and age? Can I tell him as a mediator, my God, भैया देखो ये क्या है? Can you say that a woman is not entitled to a share, or can you say ladies court nahi पहुंचना hai? How can you say that? Then I will lose the whole thing, because he has been brought up in that mindset. And it is a culture also. See, as a mama, he's prepared to do everything for the nieces. But to the sister who went to court, he doesn't want to give. So we have to understand the dynamics there. So then I asked him, what was it that was really bothering? Because he was helping. He said, no, if she had come to me and asked me, I would have given her. But because she went to court, I will not give her. But then when I asked her, she said, we have never stood in front of my bhaiya. He was like a father to us. And in our house, women were not supposed to go up and talk to the men. So how can I go and ask him? And second, I don't want to do it. It is my husband who instigated me, and at the instance of the other brother-in-law. Now, when the other men in the family are pushing me, what can I do? See, again, the dynamic is she really understands what her brother is doing. It is not her intention to ask for a share. But what is happening is she has been pushed to that level. And when she's making a claim in court, she went to court only because these people have done that. So it was not actually her intention. If you saw the exercises you were given also, either in the construction or in the other one where she's asking for a loan, again, it's the relationship dynamics. Now, in the first one, no, she depends on her friend to get the loan, and she's been getting it. But in this particular case, when it is rejected, and she's depending on it for her construction business, the first thought is that why can't the bank give it to me? In the same way, in the construction business, though he had agreed that he would put up the structure before the wedding of the son, for some reason he's not able to do it. But then the owner, what is he thinking? He's thinking, I have paid him 80%, and this is my need to get the. And for him, it will also be his self-esteem and status, because his wife would say, "Arey, मैं तो जानता हूँ, तू क्या है? You're a useless person. You have never done anything." And the marriage is coming up, and you would have promised the in-laws, the Sambandhi folks, that the daughter will get a separate living quarters here, and it is not provided. So the issues are not just the question of doing what is right, but what is the context and what can be done in that context. So although we know that individuals are thinking persons, and they can impose certain directions, or they can demand certain things, like in this construction dispute is paid 80%, so he can demand. But then why has the work not been done? He'll have to understand that. Either is it because of the inability of the person, or is it because of want of labor, or some other reasons, flood or something else happening there, whatever. But that has to be discussed. So we need a conversation for that. So The first thing that we have to do is observe. So that is what Bandura also says. Individuals have to observe and learn from behavior. So, for example, if you were all sitting in the class and your whoever is taking that particular session walks in and finds all of you sitting back like this and then throwing your legs over the table and sort of very relaxed attitude, what would the lecturer think? The lecturer would naturally think you're not interested or you're taking it too casually, right? And if it was a very senior person, the person may think, how can these people be dressed like this or how can they behave like this? But then, if they had a conversation, maybe they would get to know that the students had been told that the lecturer was not coming and they had some free time, or the lecturer would be late and they had some free time, and so they were relaxed. If the lecturer comes to know about it, then is the lecturer going to be upset or frustrated? No, definitely not. So, the first thing that we have to learn is it's like this. If we were doing this physically, I could show you, but imagine that you're standing on the 10th floor of a building and there is a highway right beneath the building, and there's heavy traffic. A lot of heavy trucks are going there, and there is a signal near the building, and this huge trucks, two trucks are passing at very rapid speed. You are observing from the 10th floor. What would you think? You would think, my God, there's a signal there. If it changes to red, this fellow will have to stop. Why is he coming at this breakneck speed? Right? That's all. That will be a comment. That's all. But if you were standing near the signal or just a little away from the signal and you first heard the vehicle whiz past, then you saw the vehicle, what would you say? You would say, my God, how can he be so foolish? There are people standing here at the edge of the pavement also. He can't be driving like this. Now, why? Because you are threatened. You are nearer that place where it could cause harm. So, unless we are able to take a step back and observe, so that is what both the parties and the mediator has to do in mediation. See, for example, there was a sexual harassment complaint. I mean, it was not a complaint, it was an allegation in a matrimonial case. And the mother had walked out of the house when she saw the father abusing the son. Both of them, both the parents were doctors. And this boy was about 14 at that time. And they had a very good hospital and practice going on. But on that particular day, she came back home early and she saw this. She walked out, and naturally, she had to file for divorce, making all these allegations. Now, and the husband filed for custody and filed some criminal cases saying that she had taken away all the family money and all sorts of things. When it came for mediation, it was very difficult to keep a very objective, view about the whole thing, because the kind of allegations that were made, what the wife was saying, was very difficult to digest. Today, we have a lot of cyber crimes. Similarly, in a case where the husband used to photograph the wife nude and upload it, she accidentally came to know about it one day, and when she saw him uh, photographing, because there was some slums near the flat, and from his fifth floor flat or something, he was uh, photographing the women who were bathing down below, and when she saw that, she questioned him and she came to know about it. She walked out. See, these are cases where you feel, my God, the first instinct is you don't like the other person at all. You think that there's something, I mean, how can you deal with this person at a normal level or have a normal conversation? But then I had gone for a workshop on these pedophiles, because here in Chennai, near Chennai, we have a place called Mahabalipuram, where there are a lot of tourists come and there are a lot of pedophiles. They come and pick up these young boys for sexual encounters. And there was a workshop here where one German doctor came and he spoke about chemical imbalances in the brain, which cause them to fantasize and go after these young boys. And apparently, in Germany, they are doing research and identifying children at a younger age and treating them. So, because I had attended this workshop, that sort of didn't make me jolt or jump out of my skin or show it on my face. It helped me to look at this person and say, what would have happened for this person to do this? And, so observing their behavior and learning why they are thinking like that is very, very important. So parties are not going to do it because they are already absorbed in their conflict. They are drowning there. They want to prove that they are right or get whatever they expect out of the whole situation. And so they are not going to be, what shall we say, very observant, and they are not going to uh, be calm enough to learn the skills to change themselves or change the other person. I'm telling you this because it's very important. Before mediation started and the family courts had started, there was a there was just counseling, and at that time they were not trained counselors. They were people who came from NGOs. And this woman was saying that she had been physically and verbally harassed by the husband, and she was very upset, and so she had filed. And this was the second time she was filing for divorce. The first time they had done conciliation and told her, after all, you have children. He's the husband. He got angry, and so she had gone back. Now she had burnt marks on her arm, and she was telling about how he used to abuse her physically and mentally and all that. So when this counselor asked the husband, he said, "What can I do, sir? I'm trying to tell her, but she's not listening. She's not satisfying my physical wants. So I'm forced to do this to her so that she complies with what I want." And then this counselor turns around and tells this person, "Oh, see, he wants his physical demands. No, if you're not satisfying, he will get angry." Now, how is this woman going to feel? Second time she's filing. It's not the first time. Second time she's filing because she's trying to put up again and his behavior has not changed. So, unless parties learn why this person is acting like this, so that is why, narratives are very, very important. What we do in mediation is go back to their childhood, go back to ask them what has happened. Especially in this case of harassment of the boy, the mother told me that the husband's mother was also a doctor and she would be away, and he was left in the care of the tuition teachers. And one of the teachers used to abuse him sexually. So he thought it was okay. So actually, she felt sorry for her husband. She said, "I don't want my son to suffer, but I'm actually sorry for my husband. And I don't want to go anywhere near him. So even, supervised visitation, I'm not agreeing to, although there was an order." She said, "I will go there. I will see that my son is comfortable. And because he sees me, he gets angry and he will purposely shut the car door and hurt us and all that. But I'm still trying to do it because I want to save my son at least now." I didn't know that he was harassed from the age of 7. But then she understood the behavior because she was a doctor and she was able to also be very objective. But not all people can do that. So it's very difficult both for the mediator and for the parties to be objective and to observe the behavior, but only then we will be able to. So it's not just about behavior, it is also about culture and values. When I talk about culture, what do I mean? Imagine any girl coming from the village uh, and then getting transposed to a metropolitan city, getting married and goes to a metropolitan city, either for work or after getting married. Her living style will be different, her perspective will be different. Imagine a young boy who has, we have a community here who done all these small grocery shops. You're next to a grocery shop, so you run, if you want mustard or you want salt, the last minute you run there and get a packet and come back. That kind of a thing. So in this particular case, he had married a girl, but her father had been in the army and had been in North, whereas he had always lived in the southern part of India. And the southernmost part, Kanyakumari district, is known for, fighting for every single issue because their land is very small, very limited. The first lesson I learned from my senior when I joined practice was that Kanyakumari people will fight even for 5 rupees till Supreme Court because they value everything. And it was like that. So they had an issue, and then he filed for divorce. And this mediator came from a family where his father was the assistant commissioner of income tax, father-in-law was a retired high court judge, wife was a high court judge at that time, he was a senior lawyer, all that. His daughter was a lawyer. So he comes from a very affluent society. So when this man, when he was asked what happened, so he said, "Sir, I get up at 4 o'clock to go and open the shop, and then I have to work there, come back for lunch. When I come, she's already sleeping, and then I have lunch and I go back, and then I have to shut up the shop and come back only by midnight. Again, she's sleeping. So what do I do with her?" So this man, he said, "What do you need?" He said, "She must get up and make my coffee, must be there to give me my food and all that." So this mediator said, "Who was doing it before you got married?" So he said, "My mother." So he said, "Why can't you ask your mother to do it?" So immediately the mediation broke because he said, "I'm not marrying her only for my mother to do everything for me." Now, as a woman standing there, I can feel affronted. I can say, "How can you think your woman has to be your slave, do everything for you? Why can't you go up, get up and make your coffee?" Okay, that's in a different scenario. But in his life space, he needs his wife to come there and do it. So it is very, very important for us to observe and learn from behavior. Also, we have to be conscious of the fact that individuals learn to be agreeable and to be more, what shall I say, forthcoming by observation. So once lead them to the point where they can observe, or lead them to the point to say why this has been happening. For example, there was a partition suit where this husband had filed the suit against his father in law because he had been in Hong Kong and he had been sending money to buy properties, and the father in law had bought the properties. He and his wife were running a restaurant in Hong Kong. Now, the father in law had bought properties in the daughter's name, in the son in law's name, in his name, his other son's name, all that. They were very close knit family. But unfortunately, when the suit was filed, the father in law immediately went and mortgaged some properties. I mean, when the claim itself was made, he mortgaged some properties. And so there was suit for mortgage, suit for partition, everything was there. But when it came to the crux, the youngest daughter told me, "Madam, please ask my father and my brother in law to talk." She gave me the clue. So when I made them sit, I asked him, then he said, when the wife had died in the meantime. The father said, "I'm not going to give him a pie. Yes, he sent some money. I have accounts, but then I also had some expenses. I mortgaged the property for developing the property. I will not give him a pie because he did not come when my daughter died." So then when I asked him, you know, it became such an emotional moment because he said it was New Year's Eve. He was in Hong Kong. His wife was here. She had closed one of the restaurants for after paying all the staff and giving them their New Year bonus and all that. And she was riding back to Chennai, in the outskirts of Chennai. She was coming back into her home. She met with an accident and died on the spot. But before she died, she had called him on the phone and she had finished whatever she had done. She had told him. And she said, "I'm going to take the rest of the day off, so don't call me tomorrow." And she had switched off the phone. After that, the accident had happened. So he was in that happy mode, thinking that his wife is, done everything and everything is fine with the business and in their personal life. And then in half an hour, he gets this news that she died in an accident. So he says he went and drunk himself into a stupor for 1 week. If all the calls that came to him were not picked up at all because he was drunk and lying down somewhere. And only after a week or so, he was able to get up, accept the fact that she had died. Then she came here. By then, all the funeral and everything was over. And when he came, they all accused him of not coming. So there was a fight between the families. So it had blown up out, because of all the emotions. But once both of them spoke in that space to each other, what happened was they were able to observe what the relationship really meant to each other, and they were able to observe and they were able to understand what had happened or what they thought was the issue was really not the issue. So it's very, very important for these people to, when we say to be objective and to observe, for them to settle down from their emotions, for them to understand uh, that they have to look at it from a central point, from a neutral point of view. So this social learning theory is very, very important. Now, when I say social learning theory, is that alone? What are we looking at? We are looking at I said values. What else? What else? Other than values, what else?
Behavior
Yeah.
and emotions.
Emotions. Then
Goals.
it is also the goals. So when we talk about relationships, it is not just uh, the personal relationship or the contractual relationship. It is also personalities and styles. That is why today I say it's very, very important to understand psychology also. Now, of course, today we won't be able to discuss. Sometime later, maybe I will give you some inputs. What is seen as personality by the West is different from what is seen as personality in our Indian knowledge systems. Basically, Indian knowledge systems looks at the attitude as Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva. Rajas is when you are aggressive, basically. Understanding is when you are very aggressive. Tamas is when you are passive. And Sattva is when there is sort of an equal reaction. Now, all of them have their plus and minus. You cannot be totally passive, you cannot be totally aggressive. But then when you look in the West, what happens is they pigeonhole people as narcissistic, people, they pigeonhole people as very aggressive. You know, there are openness, closed, and all that. So what happens is, yes, there has been a lot of research going into it. But when we look at it, we are looking at it from the point of thinking. See, when I see something hot, I see a smoking rod, iron rod on the floor. Will I go and touch it? I will not touch it because I know it's red hot and there is smoke coming from it. So I will not touch it. This is because as a child, for the first time, I would have touched something which was hot and I know what hot means, how it feels. So after that, I don't touch anything hot. So this is stored in my memory, what is called as a long-term memory. It is already there. So when you look at the screen now, or when you look at me, when you saw me for the first time on the screen, you were expecting a class, you were expecting somebody to lecture to you within this 1 hour, but you don't know who I am. Of course, you would have seen my picture on the poster, but other than that, you may not have any knowledge about me. Then when I start talking, what happens? Okay, this is conflict. She's talking about conflict. These are the inputs that she's giving. So after 1 hour, you may have some idea about me, whether I'm good, bad, ugly, whether it was nice to listen to me, not nice to listen to me, anything. So next time when you have a conversation between yourselves, what will happen? You will say, remember in the conflict class, you were saying this. Now, why do you say that? Because you were observing this, some inputs because of you what you were seeing or because of what you were hearing or because of the subject that interests you, it has gone into your brain and it is stored somewhere. Instead of looking at the brain, the neuroscience as just parts of the brain, which has emotions and all that. If we look at it as a conglomeration of senses going to a particular organ, which is deposited somewhere as memory. And as soon as when a conflict class is mentioned, how the brain automatically thinks about it is what the Indian knowledge systems talks about. So there, manas is different from the organ. Manas is mind, which is able to pigeonhole or segregate information and keep it. So personality is also seen as how we are conditioned, how we are. So in this particular case of custody that I told you about, when he came from Singapore, and I asked him, because the wife told me that he didn't have a good relation with the father, but the father was his power of attorney here and he had come for the first session. So when I asked him what was his relationship with the father, he said, I hated my father. So then that gave me a clue. See, he needed something from the father, he didn't get it. And so he wanted to be the best father. He didn't know how to be a good father. In his own way, he was trying, or he was thinking he was trying. But then that personality of his, where he's constantly pushing everything around him to show that he is better than his father or better than whatever he has seen in his life, and to show that he is the best in the world. So he was not really very observant, but that personality of his was influencing how he was talking. Even the speed in which he was talking, the words that he was using, the tone. And every time I would have to say, can we lower the word tone? Can we talk softly? So I always use the word we, because then it makes it like it's a joint effort. Otherwise, if I point out to the other person, can you stop talking? He'll say, why are you blaming me? So say, can we do this? Then it makes it better for him to accept, because I'm also taking part of the blame. So there, relationship is not just about uh, how we are connected to each other. It is also the styles of approach. See how you, when your mother comes, when you're rushing out and gives you your breakfast, would you patiently tell her, Amma, I'm so happy that you're giving me breakfast, but I don't have the time? You'd say, Ma, please don't trouble me, because you take it for granted. But the same thing with your mother-in-law or with your neighbor, would you do that? No. You would approach it in a different way. So, how we react in situations, everything is contextual. How we react in situations, how we approach situations are all different. So, relationship is most important. What is the value? Because again, what happens is, one is status. How am I being viewed here? The second is, I have, like this man said, when his sister asked for partition, I'm the eldest brother. I'm the one who's looking after the whole family. So how can this woman come up and question me? So there it was challenging his position as the decision maker in the family. So then we'll have to go around to telling him how she has been forced to come to that situation. But it cannot be said, it is not because she's asking, because somebody else forced her to. But then we'll have to bring them to the situation where it can be done. But then understanding what are the values, what are their belief systems is very, very important. And the third most important wheel there is task. What is the resource that is available? If there is only one job and four people are fighting for the job, who is to be given the job? If there is only one barrel of cement and the construction has to be completed, who is going to supply it at that point for the construction to be complete? So, what happens is, we have to understand what are their goals, what are their expectations, what are they looking at, and what is available for discussion. And sometimes, especially in a workplace dispute, which we'll come to later, that's a total different scenario from interpersonal conflicts. But even then, if it is between a superior and a subordinate, if the superior was always granting work at the last minute, and this person, like when this person has to leave the office at 5 o'clock for his son's cricket match, and he says, no, this project has to be completed today. So you have to finish this and go back home. He's already promised his son that he would come for the cricket match. How would he feel? But then the policy of the company has also to be noted. But then policy cannot be just giving it at the last moment. So how would he address the superior? What sort of mail is sent? Today, there's a lot of literature even on the font size, the color size of the fonts, the color of the fonts, and when it is sent. It's very interesting that I read an article which said that if a meeting was to be had for discussion about a contract, and this person sends the mail on Friday saying, can we have this meeting on Tuesday to finalize the contract? It means he's just only clearing his desk. He's not really intending to have the discussion on Tuesday. But if he sends it on Wednesday or Thursday, it means that he intends to have the meeting on the. Again, it's a question of culture. It's Friday, weekend going away in the West. It's not like that in the East. So we have to look at both. So what we have to understand here is that how does this relationship
Everyone, please wait. I think there are some issues. Ma'am will join. second, wait, madam. Ah, here. Ma'am, your mic is off.
Yeah, I think I got disconnected.
Yes. Yes,
Yes,
yes.
some power problem, I think. Okay,
Okay.
1 second. I hope we get it. Can you see now? There are some environmental factors in contract. In We have to understand when we are looking at this. Now, there are power relations when it is, as I said, a superior and a subordinate. They will not be able to sit across a table and discuss everything openly. Depends on the hierarchy where they are in the organization. See, for example, if the driver of the MD had come late and the MD was very angry because he had to go for an important meeting, he dismisses him. And the next time they are going to have a conversation, do you think the driver will be asked to sit opposite the MD across the table to talk? No. Of course, in mediation, we are going to have them all around the table. But would the MD be happy having him sitting near him? He will not be happy at all. So then, how do we handle this? So already there is a pre-existing power relation. There is already a deference. There are certain norms to be followed. There are certain roles which are, followed. So what we see here is the conflict, especially, has to start with dealing with managing that power relationship, managing how they are going to be able to open up and talk at the same with an open mind at the same time. So how do we manage that space is very, very important. And as I said, culture. Like this case where this woman was said, how can she go to court? We can't say how can she be blamed for going to court. We will have to make the brother understand that yes, because of the law, she is also entitled to certain rights, and because of certain things in the family, she's been asked to go. Now, what can you do for? Ultimately, he did settle some property on her and give money, but it was only after he his actually the niece came and spoke to him, and that helped. So sometimes we will have to see who are the third parties who can enable this bridge there, because he had carried her as a baby, he had brought her lollipops and all that. And so when she came and said, mama, I would like to talk to you, all the defenses broke down. So sometimes it is also, how do we make them more equal? How do we handle this equality? That is also a factor. The mediator should not unwittingly cause more power imbalance. And legitimizing myths we have spoken about, roles also we have spoken about. So what are we looking at here really when we talk about conflict? So far, what do you think you have understood? Is it just understanding the root causes, or is it something more? Anyone?
Ma'am, we understand that conflict is not always the dispute. There are certain factors which are actually leading to that particular the thing what is happening, what we are called as a conflict. There are certain factors which are leading to that particular situation. So I'm able to understand that to as a mediator, we have to understand all the emotions, situations, factors, whether it's emotions, thoughts, from the perspective of all the parties. So that I can understand till now, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. Really good. Anyone else? Anyone?
Ma'am, the same which ma'am said, and I would like to add that only when we have relationships, we would have certain expectations, and when these are not fulfilled, that could lead to conflicts. So there could be emotional backdrop that causes a conflict,
Yeah.
or values that are not fulfilled or satisfied.
Exactly. So when we are talking about conflict and conflict management, see, when we talk about problem solving and decision making, there are two different issues altogether. In generally in mediation, what we are talking is about problem solving. But even for problem solving, parties must be able to observe, understand what is available, choose from the alternatives they have, and make a decision, right? But it should put an end to the whole thing. So it is not just about looking at the interest, looking about the issues. It is also about understanding, as you all of you have been saying now, understanding the emotions, what caused the emotions, what is their background also. So the personalities is not just because they are aggressive or they are passive or whatever they are putting up front. It is also because of their conditioning or how they have been brought up, what are their values. So I believe that conflict counters mainly are under four heads: personality, which is their attitudes, beliefs, and the constructs, which are the narratives. See, even as a child, when we came back with low marks and had to get the report card signed by the parent, and if the father asked, "Why did you get such low marks in maths?" What did we say? We say it was out of syllabus, or the teacher didn't mark all the questions. Now, why did we give all those evasive answers instead of saying, "I didn't answer properly"? Because already I have an image, or I believe that my father is going to hit me if I say I didn't do my exam well, or scold me. I don't want that. I don't want to be blamed. So I have a story ready to say when I go for my report card to be signed. In every situation, we have that. You bought a new car, you're going on the road, and in your hurry, you dashed against something and there is a dent. But when you go back home and your family asks, would you admit that the dent was because you were driving rashly? Never. Why? Again, you don't want to take on the blame. You say the rickshaw wala came this side, or the motorbike fellow wala came this side, something like that. You never take the blame. So these constructs are automatically springing in our brain. For anything and everything, we are always defensive. So there was one man called Malan. Actually, he's a British or half Indian, who later went back to Britain. And he, in psychology, he talks about a lot about this. He talks only about feelings and defensiveness. Mostly any situation we are in where there's a dissonance is because of feelings, and that feelings is because we are with defensive. So personality is mostly about attitude, beliefs, and construct. The second is how we look at it. There are dynamics, because every situation there is a dynamic. We are looking at it with our entitlements and with our prejudices. Now, this brother was saying, "Oh, how can a woman come into court?" So that's a prejudice, that's a bias. He thinks women should not go there at all. Or the husband who comes from Singapore says, "How can the child," or even this uh, father who was sexually harassing the boy, when he had to meet the boy, he only said, "A boy cannot live without his father, so you have to come back to me." As if such a father would be helpful to him. So there'll be a lot of prejudices, there are a lot of dynamics there. Unless we are able to observe this perspective of the parties, perspective of the situation, and help the parties to understand the perspectives, nothing will be possible. And we generally say in negotiation, people take positions. Now, why do we say positions? Because there is a lot of entitlement, there is expectation also, but mostly because we there is a threat to ourself, threat to our identity. If I'm denied something, I feel that I'm not respected, I'm not valued. So what happens is that I have my goals, I feel that this person is thwarting my attempt to reach my goals. And so what? Immediately after that, even my body language will convey to them how I look at the situation. Even saying, I know, that's enough. The other person will go off in a rage. So posturing is also because of their belief, their frame of their identity, their behavior and goals. And the last one is power, which is hierarchy, resources, and information, data. Now, there is something called the triangle of wisdom, uh, which a person has coined, Acroft. He says, first is data. You get a lot of information, then you understand it. And then once you understand that information, what happens? It becomes knowledge. And only when there is usefulness from that knowledge, when you are able to um, connect with what is useful in a particular situation, that becomes wisdom. So it's very, very important for us to sieve through the information, relate to the information, understand the what is necessary there. So I think we have another 5 minutes. Does anyone have any questions so far? I would like some response.
Yes, till now.
I think there is an internet issue here,
Okay.
ma'am. Just 1 minute. Let me
Okay.
check.
Okay.
Anyone has any questions?
No, ma'am.
Is it because it wasn't really interesting, or why is it?
No, ma'am. Actually, me and
Ma'am,
Akash.
everything was crystal clear. It was the other way around. Everything was crystal clear.
Okay, I'll just wind up with this
Yes,
so that
ma'am.
we continue this next time. This Morton Douche has done a lot of work. Actually, he's compiled a lot of articles, and that is also available on Google as a manual on conflict resolution. It runs to about 900 odd pages. If you have the time, read it. But basically, when he talks about conflict frame, what he says is the first thing is injustice. What I think is injustice. If I'm denied my share in the property, I think that is injustice. A brother may be living in USA and sending money to the father, and property would have been bought here. And when he comes here and the property is not given to him, he feels, oh, I sent the money, but for this, these people would not have bought the property. It may be true, it may not be true, because the money may have been used for the medical expenses of the parents. We don't know. But the first reaction is perceived injustice. The second is when we look at it as something unjust, how do we go? See, this person, when he came from Singapore, he said, she purposely didn't tell me all this in Singapore because it's easier to get orders in Singapore for me. And she purposely came to India and did this because she knows it's a long winding process and I cannot get anything done here fast. So for him, it was a process and outcome which was going to be unjust because of the delay here. He didn't like the process of the Indian courts. But the beauty of it was, I think it was in the second or third session, when I asked him, we were discussing about the earlier, his childhood and later and all that. And then when I asked him, how did he feel when he knew that his wife was not coming back? He said, I'm feeling lost. I was feeling totally lost and so helpless. And actually, for a moment, he looked as if he would cry like a small baby. He was just cringing. And then, of course, we had a few more sessions, and actually, he came down from wherever he was, but we were not ultimately able to settle because of various other factors. But then, when we closed the session, the man who was totally against the Indian judicial system felt that she had more leverage here because of her family's connections here, and she had brought the child here, so she had more leverage, all that. But at the time when we were closing the session, when I asked him, he said, now I have belief in the system, madam, because this mediation helped me to understand what could have what could be done now. And I thought that was a major shift, and that was a major success also for a person who was not willing to listen to another person, who believed that he knew everything and who believed that he had been frustrated, to feel that he can look at the other side. That itself was a major step. So I think that is where it shifts to what is just. So once they understand what is the outcome, what is it that you really need? I may want to fly, I may want to go and settle in the moon. That's different. But then what is really needed here? What is just here? What can I get out of these resources, out of this relationship? Then if we look at it, what happens? That blaming and shaming and all that goes away. And you sort of uh, what happens is you start looking at it very objectively. And then the last one, if but before, if we don't get into that, what happens is there is a lot of blaming and blaming, because of which there is a withdrawal. See, we say avoiding is good, but if you really think about it, avoiding is never good, because that only adds to the frustration of the other person. If this person doesn't talk at all or explain, they will think, oh, he doesn't care for me at all. He doesn't respect what I'm going through. So, competitive and cooperation, they are different. We'll go into that later. But what I'm saying is that looking at the horses, they, facing it, they say, no. So, looking at the conflict, observing it. So, what I normally say is that, okay, if this situation had happened to a friend and the friend had come to you with this, asking what can be done, what would your view be? So, when it happens to me, see, when we go and dash against the wall unwittingly and your foot is hurt, you scream at everything, right? But when somebody else has hurt their foot, what do you tell them? Oh, why don't you sit down and it will become all right? And they are going through the same pain. But then it's not the pain that you are feeling. But you know that ultimately it will go away. But when it happens to you, you don't think of it like that. You only think, oh, whole world has come down on my foot. So helping them to make that paradigm shift is what is conflict management. Okay, helping them to observe, helping them to understand the values, helping to recognize the culture, helping them to understand the nature of the relationship. So in this partition suit, when I told the son-in-law, how much did the father-in-law mean to you? I mean, you've been sending money from Hong Kong like this. So he said he was more like my father than my own father. And that man also said he was more of my son than my son. Then I said, why do you want to break this relationship? Is there anything because of which you would like this relationship to get back on track? And then they broke down and they held hands and all that after that. So, and that also that takes time and we must choose the opportune moment. But what I'm telling you is that there is also a litigation fatigue, which we say. Unless people are tired of fighting, they won't come to a sense where they can observe. Sometimes it's also because of the limited resources, sometimes because of their perception of justice, sometimes it is perception of what the other person needs and how much they can do. So, asking the right questions and being present throughout the discussion with them enables the parties to make this paradigm shift. And for that, the mediator also has to be conscious of their own biases, their own identity, their own sense of values and self. So I hope I've given you a bird's eye view of what conflict is, and
Yes.
any issues that you would like to be addressed, please share it with Deepshika so that we can address it in the later sessions. Okay. Thank you. Hope you have a good time today.
We actually had very good time, and actually the information was entirely new to us because we were just reading theory and everything. We are the newbie of the mediators actually right now. And at the start, our mind was actually, we were discussing that our mind was jumbling with the words because there's so much new information coming towards us. And I think we will learn more from you, ma'am. And again, I'm saying thank you so much for giving this
It's my
enlightenment lecture. And I can say from the faces of all of them that they are very, very actually keen to listen to you again, ma'am.
thank you. This also gives me an opportunity. When I share, also learn. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you so
So
much,
thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you, man.
Thank you so
I'll,
much, ma'am.
yeah,
Thank you,
I
man.
will